The wind howled across the icy tundra, whipping through the snow-covered plains like an invisible force of nature. The air was so cold that every breath felt like tiny needles piercing the lungs. In this frozen wilderness, survival was a daily battle, and for one unfortunate musk ox, that battle had become nearly impossible. He stood alone, his massive frame covered in thick, shaggy fur, but something was terribly wrong. His coat, meant to shield him from the brutal Arctic cold, was weighed down by an unnatural burden. Millions of parasites clinging to his skin, feeding off his body, draining his strength. His once proud posture had slumped, his movements slow, and labored, every step a struggle. And if that wasn't bad enough, his body was also encrusted with barnacles, as if he had been trapped in water for far too long, exposed to the elements in ways no land animal should ever endure. For weeks, maybe even months, he had wandered, suffering in silence, his pain invisible to the untrained eye. But something about him was different now. His head drooped lower. His breath came in ragged, uneven puffs of steam. He was losing the fight. And in the wild, weakness never goes unnoticed. The Arctic is unforgiving, and predators always watch for easy prey. But before nature could take its course, fate intervened. A small rescue team had been monitoring the region, tracking animal populations for research. They were used to seeing the hardships of wildlife, but nothing could have prepared them for the sight of this musk ox. When they first spotted him through their binoculars, they thought he was simply covered in snow or ice. But as they moved closer, the true horror of his condition became clear. His fur was moving, crawling, alive. It was a discovery that sent shivers down their spines, even in the freezing cold. Parasites weren't uncommon in the wild, but this was something else, an infestation so severe that it threatened to end the poor creature's life before his time. The barnacles, usually found on sea creatures, added another layer of mystery. How had he ended up in this state? Had he fallen through the ice into the frigid Arctic waters, only to miraculously survive? Had he been stranded somewhere, unable to clean himself properly? One thing was clear. If they didn't act fast, he wouldn't make it. The team was made up of wildlife experts, veterinarians, and experienced rescuers, people who had dedicated their lives to saving animals in desperate situations, but even for them, this was going to be a challenge. Musk oxen are not small, nor are they easy to approach. They are powerful, wild creatures with an instinct to defend themselves, and a frightened, suffering animal could be even more unpredictable. But they had no choice. Time was running out. With their equipment loaded onto snowmobiles, they set off, navigating the treacherous landscape, the icy winds biting at their exposed skin. The mission was clear: locate the musk ox, assess the situation, and do whatever it took to free him from his torment. But in the wild, nothing ever goes exactly as planned. As they neared the area where they had last seen him, a new problem arose. The musk ox was no longer alone. A pack of Arctic wolves had caught his scent, their sharp eyes locked onto their next potential meal. The team's hearts pounded. It was now a race against time, not only to rescue the suffering animal, but to get to him before the predators. Would they make it in time? Would the musk ox trust them enough to accept their help? Or was he too far gone, beyond saving? The tundra stretched out before them, a vast, merciless expanse of white. Somewhere ahead, their mission waited, and whatever happened next, there was no turning back. The rescue team pressed forward, their snowmobiles kicking up fine powder as they cut through the frozen expanse. The sky had taken on a dull gray hue, thick clouds hanging low, threatening a storm. Every second mattered. They had seen the musk ox's suffering. But now there was another danger. Wolves. A hungry pack was somewhere out there, watching, waiting. Daniel, the team's lead tracker, squinted through his binoculars, his breath fogging up the lenses. He had spent years working in the Arctic, studying the land and its wildlife, but even he had never seen a case like this. The sight of that musk ox, covered in parasites and barnacles, haunted him. He knew animals could be resilient, But he also knew that suffering like this couldn't last forever. They had to help. Beside him, Sarah, the team's veterinarian, adjusted the medical pack strapped to her back. Her fingers, stiff from the cold, checked through her supplies again. Tranquilizers, antiseptics, dewormers, emergency rations. She had treated sick and injured animals before, but how do you treat a creature that has been slowly drained by parasites, weighed down by the ocean's grip, and now possibly facing an attack? "I don't like this," Sarah muttered, glancing over at Daniel. "If those wolves get to him first—" "We won't let that happen," Daniel said firmly. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure how. They pushed on, scanning the horizon, their hearts pounding with every passing minute. Then, finally, they spotted him. The musk ox stood near the edge of a frozen ravine, his massive body hunched over as if even holding his own weight was becoming too much. His fur, once thick and majestic, now sagged, crusted with patches of ice and filth. And the parasites, they could see them even from a distance, shifting and moving across his body.